All right, looks like everyone's coming on board. Thank you all so much for coming on to the YPN Celerate series titled Leadership Without a Title. I'm first going to kick off with Leonardo Mccarthy. He is in charge of the chamber. Leonardo?
Yes, thank you, Mark, and thank you to our panelists and for all of our participants that have joined in. And we've got a great topic, which I think is certainly evidenced by the number of people that are participating this morning. But I just wanted to check in and say hello. It's been a while since we've been able to gather, particularly from our young professionals network side of things. But again, hope all of you are doing well. And again, this is the first of many great events to continue to come. It may be in a different format, but certainly just know that the Chamber and all of our programs are committed to still delivering great content, great value, and relevant information, whether we're in person, whether we're virtual, and so forth. So again, I just wanted to thank all of our sponsors of YPN, as well as the Chamber's annual partners that hopefully you can see behind me on the virtual background here. But again, thank you all for your continued support of the Chamber. And with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Mark, who will introduce Zachary, and he will then share with us a little bit about our tremendous panel that we have assembled here. And so with that, Mark, the screen is yours.
Thank you, sir. And Taylor, if you would like to switch over to the screen with our sponsors. If y'all, for optimized viewing, if you want to do it as a speaker view, that would be great. In the chat, if you want to put in your LinkedIn, we're all here to connect to each other and learn, understand who we are. So put in your in the chat room a link to your LinkedIn profile. We greatly appreciate it, so we can all interact and network with each other offline. I'd like to thank our annual sponsors, Howard Hughes, McFarland Insurance Agency, Davis, Agnor, Rappaport, and Scalny, and Dembo Jones. They are the reasons we host these Celerate events. We host our events all year round, and we thank them for their sponsorships. Just a little housekeeping items. There will be Q&A down below. That's where you put your questions. Chat is where you put your LinkedIn and any other questions that the panelists and Zachary may have. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Put it in the chat box if there's any issues, but let us know. With that said, I'll hand it over to Zachary Cochran. Zachary?
Thanks, Mark. Wow, what a crazy time with this pandemic, is it not? It is just an unbelievable set of circumstances, and it feels like we've had to learn a whole new language with how to communicate on video. So I'm so grateful for the three panelists who are joining me today to talk about leadership without a title. Just a few additional housekeeping items I wanted to do. Start off with maybe a fun one, which will help our panelists know kind of who we're talking to. But I'd like to do a poll and get a sense of who in the room is a manager, who is an employee. Manager can mean business owner or executive. Employee is pretty much if you do or don't have someone reporting to you. So go ahead and take a few moments to click on that button. And we'll see our poll results to see who out of the 49 participants we have here this morning are managers and employees. All right, a few more seconds. If you haven't responded yet, you should be able to do that on your screen. There's a separate poll pop-up. All right, well, while that's going on, let's see. Oh, here we go, results. Okay, wonderful. So if you hopefully can see this as well, employees, we have 67%, so most of the people in the webinar are employees, 33% are managers. So that is to say, most of us are leading without a title. So you're in the right webinar. Good job. Thanks so much for being here. So a few things, you can chat with us as we're going, and it would really be helpful to get your questions throughout as they come up, as you think of them. Go ahead and send that in the chat. If you'd like to have more of a dialogue, right, back and forth, you can also use Twitter. We're going to have a hashtag that you can use, HOCO YPN, HOCO YPN, and you can use that to talk back and forth as well. Each of the panelists have a Twitter handle, and would it be okay with all of you if I share those as well? Maybe give me a thumbs up. Yep. Okay. All right. So Jason Abell is Rewire Jason. That's REWIRE Jason. Dr. Humphrey is Yield to Grow, YIELDTOGROW. And maybe as I'm doing this, you guys can put those in the chat if you don't mind. And then John has the hardest one to spell here. PUMTHUGGEE, Pumpty. Is that right?
I just put it in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Apologies.
Awesome. And I believe mine is Zachary M. Cochran. So we need leadership more than ever right now. And I want to kind of give each of our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves for a couple minutes to talk about their kind of experience and credentials and why they're here to talk with us. Quick note before we do that, as many of you know, I moderated the YPN panel that we had back in October of last year, the topic being entrepreneurship. So for many of you, it's a hello again. If you don't know who I am, I'm one of the new board members for the YPN. I have my own business, Cochran Coaching LLC, and I've been running that for about 3 years. That has been quite an adventure, and learning all about leadership. As you can see in my books behind me, I have to have quite a few books on leadership and just in general to even learn what I'm doing as a business owner. So for me, it's a real privilege to be able to talk to each of these folks because they're experienced professionals, they're wonderful people, and with that, I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So let's see. John, if you don't mind, let's start with you, and then Dr. Humphrey, and we'll end with you, Jason.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm a huge fan of YPN and the Chamber. Yeah, I'm hoping to just provide something of value because my career path makes less than 0 sense. And I don't know, did you want me to do the quick and dirty now, Zachary, or just
yeah, go for it.
All right. So yeah, so here's the broad strokes. I originally went to school for automotive design to become a car designer, and it was really the only thing I ever wanted to do. I had one school, one major, and I applied one time and I got in. And kind of when I got there, I had this light bulb revelation that my real gift was creativity, not cars. And it completely, threw off all of my plans because if I didn't want to be this one thing, what was I going to do? And I kind of came back, reset, and the next many years following, I've had careers as full-time youth ministry, working at a church. I've run my own business the first time. I've worked at a law firm. I've worked at a creative agency, and now I'm running my own shop again, doing sort of outsourced, marketing consulting. So that's sort of the wild and wacky of my career path, and I've tried to reverse engineer how I was able to go through each step. It was not organized, and there was no next step clear at the time, but hoping today I can provide some value about leading yourself, leading your path, finding your next step, even when it doesn't make any sense at the time. So happy to be here, and I'll answer any questions that you have for me.
Thanks, John. And John actually has a book, Creative Threads. So if he wanted to do a quick raffle, in fact, if you have been on the most number of Zoom Zoom webinars this week, he wants to send you a book. So in the chat, go ahead and let us know how many Zoom webinars you've registered for and been a part of so far this week. If you're the highest number, John will have to follow up with you to send you his book.
Are we doing webinars or just like calls, like meetings?
Let's do calls and meetings. You set the terms, John.
Okay. Yeah. Any Zoom time you've logged in, just drop it in there. Have you done more than 5, 10, 15, 30? One of you is off the charts right now. I wonder who it is because I'm going to mail you a book.
All right. Awesome. Dr. Humphrey, welcome. And if you'd introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Zachary, and the Howard County Chamber of Commerce, YPN, for the opportunity to participate in this panel today. So my work is firmly grounded in education and counseling, and I currently work to prepare mental health and school counselors for the field and for their environments. So one of the things that I really enjoy about teaching is how it allows me to connect with other people. And I get a lot of joy out of listening to others' stories and also sharing my own experiences. And so I think there's no better area for us to discuss those types of things than it is in terms of our career, because we're not just really talking about how we make money or how we spend our time, but how we really use our lives in meaningful ways. And so my current research is focused on how school counselors can work with elementary school students to begin building this language of leadership and really identifying for them these leadership traits, habits, and practices. So I look forward to this conversation with everyone.
And Dr. Humphrey is, like all of these panelists, a leader of leaders. Each of them have run different leadership development programs. Additionally, like all of the panelists, Dr. Humphrey is an author as well. And I'm not able to share the book, but it's a textbook on counseling, elements of culture in counseling. And she has written that with several other co-authors. With that, I'm going to pass it to Jason for his introduction.
Hey, everybody. I have to first congratulate the 50 or so people that are with us today, because you guys have, even though, there is a real thing called Zoom fatigue, and I see the highest one so far, John, is 10. That's a lot. Today's only Thursday, so that's a lot for this week. So, there's just Zoom fatigue. But in spite of that and all the things that are going on right now, there's 50 or so of you that have said, no, I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna get off of the field of play and invest in myself. And so I just want to congratulate you all, because you're investing in yourself right now, and that already makes you a leader. So I'm just excited about that. Who I am, I first and foremost, I am the husband of this amazing woman I call my wife. Her name is Amy. She's a health coach, so I drink a lot of green smoothies these days, more than I used to. And I'm the dad of 2 teenagers, which keeps me on my toes for sure. Career-wise, I was in college. I was fortunate enough to be exposed to a bunch of thought leaders through my father's. He had this library of people like Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell, and I was exposed to that at a very young age. And I nerded out on a lot of that information. And Zachary, probably some of those books that you have on your bookshelf are books that I was exposed to, at a young age. And so what I tried to do at the time was take that information that then was only available to to adults, mostly in the business world like we are right now, and synthesize it in a book for young adults. So I wrote a book called Start Now, The Young Adult's Passport to Success and Wellbeing. There it is right there, Zachary. We just renewed that book and republished it last year, which has been really fun. It has been brought into the internet age, because in 1993, when I originally wrote it, there wasn't no internet. So that's been good. After that, and after graduating from college, I was a mortgage banker for 21 years in corporate America. 11 of those 21 years, I had a business coach myself, and I saw the value in coaching and development. I became very close with my business coach, and he and I, 6.5 years ago, started a company called Rewire, which is a training and development company focused mostly on business and executive coaching for the mortgage and the real estate industries. do a lot of leadership things like we're doing right now, which I really love doing. So thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you all for being here. And one other note about Jason. Jason and I were able to sit down right before the pandemic started and to do a pilot episode of a podcast that I'm starting on career mentors. And so that'll actually be published later today if you want. I've just put my LinkedIn profile in the chat. You can follow me there, connect with me there, and you'll be able to listen to that. All right, so let's get to the meat of it. And the questions about leadership could be, oh my gosh, so many. I'm glad that we have that angle of leadership without a title because of the literal thousands of leadership books that have been written. So what I'd like to do is do a little bit of just, a quick back and forth, ask some questions to set the groundwork for us, like on what is leadership. And then once we get to that point, we'll jump into the real meat of it and then go to questions. So with that, feel free, not all of you need to answer, just one of you can. If you agree, you can give a thumbs up. But I'd like to just ask basic questions of like, okay, what is leadership? That's the question, yeah.
Well, I unmuted first, so I think that means I'll go first. What is leadership? Well, first of all, it's multifaceted. But I think my definition of leadership is very similar, and it's a conglomeration of what I've learned and observed, which is that of influence. And gosh, that can mean so many different things, right? There's different things, there's different facets that you need. You need a leader and followers. You need a situation to lead through. And there's all the different realms and competencies of leadership. But I think influence would be just a one-word definition. And I could drone on, but I'll let Dr. Humphrey and John chime in on that.
Yeah, and if you disagree, jump in, please. But I want to ask, leaders, are they born or are they made?
I think leadership is, I think it's like a muscle in the sense that like some people maybe are more naturally gifted to just like, they love hitting the gym and it's easy for them and they're just, shredded abs all day. But others of us who really like Netflix and chips, like maybe it takes a little more discipline to move that direction. I thought of an analogy the other day, which is sort of a dodge the question, but maybe it's a helpful one. Like if you look at a sculpture, like something in an art museum, like when that sculpture started, it was just a huge block of granite, but someone had a vision for it. And then some person with a chisel and a hammer and probably had a bunch of other people who didn't make it into the little plaque next to the thing, but he had workers and supporters and funders and all this. Like they brought something out of nothing, and whether that person that has their name on the plaque was the person holding the chisel or the one overseeing many people with teeny tiny chisels, at the end of the day, there's something that was there that wasn't before, and it took intention and oversight and lots of hitting the hammer a lot of little times. So I don't think that's my answer for like what is leadership, but it's an analogy that I think of because the output of leadership is something that exists that wouldn't have before without your intention and repetition. And if you are the person with your name on the plaque in the art museum, or you just walk through it and show your family and say, hey, I carved out the toe on this guy's huge sculpture, all parts play towards that final design. So that's kind of an answer, but it's just something that's been on my mind coming up to this.
So I'm hearing kind of out of that leadership, still influence, like Jason said, and that really anyone can be a leader if they spend the time to to do that and do that intentionally. But maybe Dr. Humphrey, you can answer that question. Can anyone be a leader?
I think anyone can be a leader, and there's a level of obviously motivation that is involved in the desire to be a leader. John, I really love your story because I recently interviewed a mentor of mine, and he said even as a young child, he was just getting people together to do things. And I think that is a really simple way to look at leadership, but that it is obviously this kind of collaboration that may be inborn in terms of your personality, but is definitely something that you develop and that you hone over time, and you really take whatever you've experienced and you incorporate it. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is that our understanding of leadership, while it's not complete, it has developed so that we understand that leadership is not just contained within a person, but it is a level of skills that you can develop.
Okay, so kind of to the title of this whole webinar, Leading Without a Title, someone help me out. What does it mean to lead without a title?
I'll if I may, your previous question was, can anyone be a leader? I would say that everyone is a leader, and I love what John and Dr. Humphrey said as far as, that muscle, and you might have a bent in that direction, but every single person that's listening to us right now is a leader, starting with yourself, the self-leadership piece. When you're a child coming up, and even now as adults, like, you have hundreds of decisions to make every single day, and you've got choices of how you're going to lead yourself from, am I going to drink water or soda? What time am I going to go to bed? What type of, what material and content am I going to consume, right? To fill my brain, to figure out the way that I'm thinking, and which leads to who I'm going to become. And so I would say that whether you have a title of a manager or a director or some type of a leader, you are a leader, and it starts with yourself and really bringing your best self to the table, title or no title.
So maybe you can give John or Dr. Humphrey some specifics on that. What does it look like for us to practice? If we don't have a title, how can we practice either those leadership skills or to kind of function as a leader in our careers or in our lives?
I think when we talk about a title, obviously titles provide definition, right? And it's a way to categorize us on the organizational flow chart. But I would encourage everyone that's listening to think about whatever title you currently hold as the baseline for your actual work. So the leader commits, part of being a leader is being the responsible one. And the leader commits to doing whatever is required, not just what falls under a particular job description. So doing what's required is really being that leader. I will say too, though, that when we lead without a title, it really speaks to who we are. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about character. So when you're leading without a title, you're driven by making that contribution and lifting others up, not simply because that's what necessarily is expected under your title. And so I think sometimes we struggle. I want to kind of underscore what Jason said. We struggle to see ourselves as leaders because maybe that's not the way that we spend most of our time, or that's not how others view us, or even how we see ourselves. So really, if we begin to look at what we're doing and see those threads in it of self-management that we then transfer to other people, particularly as maybe wives and mothers, that's part of my wheelhouse, then we will see that even in managing some of that behind the scenes work, that we are leading all along. We have been leading all along.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that's a perfect segue into this this next section here. But to recap, so leadership is influence. Leaders are, anyone can be a leader. In fact, everyone needs to lead themselves. Leadership matters. You can lead without a title. And we'll talk about what that looks like, or how to identify your values. That's really where I want each of you now to chime in. And it's really our core question for the webinar. How, we're all driven by our values, whether we know it or not. How can we do a better job of identifying those values?
I'm sorry, what your question is, how do we identify our own? I'm sorry, I just blanked on the question.
No, it's how do you identify the values that drive you as a leader? So I'll give you an example. When I went through a leadership development course and Jason actually was instrumental in this. He was helping to run this course. One of the things that we were led through was a personal life statement. We had to say very clearly, you know, what is it that drives us that then gives us the clarity for how we're going to lead and interact in our careers going forward. So, you know, that is a simple example, right? Kind of coming up with a statement. But how do we go through that process of identifying our values that shapes who we are as leaders?
I'll jump into that. I think the benefit, especially for those that may be on this call, is if, like, in the early parts of your career, try a lot of things, say yes to as many options as come to you, and don't look to the default path that just is the clear one in front of you. If you just do nothing, where will the boat take you, kind of thing. Really, if you have something that's an option, you should do it. If you have a risk and you're early in your career, you should take it. Because it's very hard to identify your values in a vacuum and abstraction, and without the experience to sort of in parallel inform both your heart and mind about what you're gifted for, what you like to do, and what you don't like to do. But in that process, if you're able to own that yourself, most people just look to, I went to school for this degree, what do I do next? The degree will tell me. Oh, I got my first career, what do I do next? My career will tell me. I'm a level 2, blah, blah, blah at some firm. What's next? A level 3, blah, blah, blah at some firm. That's not self-leadership. It's not bad. I'm not saying that is a bad progression, but if you want to be someone who early on in your career learns the lesson of how to test, experience, and apply your skills, be diverse, go broad, try everything, say yes to everything, and don't necessarily look for the next logical step in the trajectory you're on. Don't rely on that too much to really inform who you are as a leader and as a professional. That's just the next recommended thing. But a lot of the people who got in really amazing places in life, they didn't follow that path. And that's okay.
Man, I don't know those of you who might be on Twitter there. John just dropped a gold nugget that I wrote down. I wrote down in my book, John. You said, if you have a risk in front of you, take it. Right? There was you didn't have any context there. You didn't have any qualifying statements. It was just, if you have a risk in front of you, take it. That right there is a tweetable, if I've ever heard one. And I wrote that down. I'm going to take some risks today because of what you just said. That was awesome.
Nice. Wow. Honored.
Well, I just know that I think back at, you know, when you said that, I think back at some of my career choices along the ways, and the most exciting ones, or the ones that led to the real fun stuff or meaningful things, was when I took a risk, not when I laid it up and played it safe. And so that was good. Thanks for reminding us of that.
I would say one other way to, you know, as a counselor, one other way to identify your values is think about what makes you smile and what gets you angry. And I know those are two extremes, but normally, like, we feel anger when our expectations or our values are violated. And so the other thing I would say is, you know, pay attention to those moments. Look at how you spend your time and money. That will quickly reveal what you prioritize. One of the ways that I spend my disposable income is going out to eat with friends. I do like food, but I like connecting with people more. And so it helped me understand, hey, that's where all my money's going. That's why I'm in the restaurant or in the cafe. Of course, we can't do that now. But I think it's really important to pay attention to those things. I really like what you said as well, John. And when you take those risks, it reveals something about you. I'll say too, look at how you behave. Like, what about you is consistent across environments? And that points to something that you have to offer, but something that you want to get from people as well. So again, if for me, I can be in the grocery store and engage the cashier about her life story, because I like listening to people's life stories and trying to find those points of connection. So whatever you're doing across your various places and environments, that's probably a really good key to what you value and what you can bring to the marketplace.
That's so good. You're making me think of sometimes looking in the mirror is tough, or sometimes looking at our credit card statement, or we can I don't want to say lie to ourselves, but deceive ourselves sometimes. Sometimes asking your sphere of influence around you, the people that are close to you and really care about you, asking them, where do you see me spending my time? What do you see me getting, to your point, Dr. Humphrey, what do you see me getting angry about? What do you see that excites me? And again, if the people that you're asking care about you, they'll tell you the real deal. This is what I see. And that starts to pluck out the things that, might be important to you, or might be things that you value.
Wonderful. Great suggestions, everyone. So, yeah, while you were talking, it made me think of a book that I've read, Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. Marja, you're nodding your head. I actually have that one on my shelf, but it's a really great way to, figure out, like John was saying, prototyping your career, testing things out. Identifying your values is a piece of that overall picture, and it's so important to being a leader. Okay, so the real question, let's talk like real talk for a minute. Like we're in a pandemic. If we haven't been laid off personally, we have close friends who have been furloughed or are currently struggling because they've lost a job. And so, it's all this talk about leadership is great in the theoretical, and that's helpful from a long-term perspective, but let's get really practical for a minute. Like we're feeling as young professionals some extra pressure to be indispensable right now, so that we don't lose our jobs, so that we can actually help our, struggling companies. What kind of leadership, should we be providing to our organizations, and even to our community, our friends, right? Help us understand, how would you encourage us to be indispensable?
I'll start to say things that come to my mind when you say that, Zachary. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I will go back to the manner in which you're leading yourself and just the self-care. So it really is back to basics, things like how much sleep are you getting? How's your nutrition? How much water are you drinking? Like how much news are you not watching? It's not only what you are doing, but it's what you're not doing, which is important as well. And I know all of us need at some point in time escape. Like John, you mentioned chips and Netflix. Man, I love those things, right? And there's a time and place for that, but it's when that becomes the norm and what's filling up your space. So just that self-leadership piece first, because then, and this gets the crux of your answer, I think, Zachary, then when you do show up to work or in front of other people, you're just presenting your best self. And when you present your best self, you're just more apt to be focused. You're more apt to be able to adapt to the current situation. When we think of the adaptation continuum, right now with what's happening, none of us knew that this was going to happen 3 months ago. We just didn't have, we should be face to face right now. We should all be all 50 or 70, however many people, we should be in a room together right now. We just didn't know that this was going to be this way. And so there are, if you think of a continuum, there's a couple ways to deal with this crisis. One is the freakout mode, right? So you are doing chips and Netflix. You're watching a ton of news. You're not getting a lot of sleep. Maybe you're doing some escapism with drinking or food or whatever it is. That's going to lead to freakout mode. And then the other end of the spectrum, of the adaptation spectrum, is, denial. It's not that bad. I can handle this. This is, kind of like your head in the sand. And I've heard people, crazy stuff like, the coronavirus, that's no big deal. No one's going to get sick, whatever. And you're like, okay, wait a minute, what? So neither one of those spectrums is probably where you want to be. But in the middle, there's some sort of adaptation where I think what we're doing right now with the chamber, this is an example of adaptation. We're still doing what we're doing. We're doing it differently, but we're still doing what we're doing. And I would say that for you, your leaders, like we already identified, you're the leader of yourself first, but then when you show up to work, the manner in which you're adapting to the situation, that will drive how you're leading yourself first, and then doing the job, showing up as your best self, and doing it, as opposed to the pressure of what can I do? How can I add value? It is just that adaptation, like, okay, this is real. What is it that I need to do? How can I adapt? Because you'll notice in the marketplace right now, whether you're selling houses or whether you're a developer or whatever it is that you do for a living, the market is attracted to the people that are adapting the best, right? Even though we've got this social distancing and we can't go anywhere. There's realtors that are selling a bunch of houses right now because they've just figured out ways to adapt. And so anyways, there was a lot of talking and I apologize, but in the middle of it, the word adaptation is something that I would say is a key element to get to the answer that you're looking for, Zachary.
Thanks. While our other panelists are answering, I just want to remind you, please send those questions that you have for our panelists in the chat. That way I'll be able to see them and we can ask those. We've got about 15 minutes before I hand things back off to Mark to wrap things up.
Zachary, I got some quick tips for anybody that's writing stuff down. I got 3 easy ones for you. Are you ready? First of all, do whatever makes your person above you look awesome to their person above you. So if you can get something to them early, if you can clean up some mess that they made, if a thing that they did that they're about to send has typos, fix it, send it. Don't try to get the credit, just make them look awesome. It goes way up the food chain and you get the ongoing results. Second one is look for something of value you can share with your manager and your team that's not necessarily about your work product. It could be something just for fun. Hey, look at this funny video about a Zoom call in real life, right? Everybody's seen that one. But if you have something funny that's relevant to your space, send it around or send it to your manager for them to share and get the LOL credit with your team. And the last one is pick one day a week to stay up late and send work emails. Just look like you're awesome, right? Just look like you're crushing it either early in the morning or late at night. Pick one day a week, work really late or get up really early and hit that inbox to indicate that you're not on just 9 to 5 checkout Netflix, right? So you have to actually be, I'm assuming everyone on this call is actually doing really great work and staying on top of it. But that one hack, you're communicating something subconsciously. I don't know if it's authentic or inauthentic. I'm just telling you, late night and early morning emails get noticed, especially if you're quote unquote at the bottom of the food chain. All right. So there's 3 quick tips for you. Get off 9 to 5, make your manager look awesome, and look for something of value that you can share to your entire team that's not about your work, but that does benefit the whole team.
All right, those are some great tips. So as questions hopefully start to come in here, I want to give you each an opportunity. This is sort of your choose your own adventure here. I'd love for you to just tell us a quick story about you as a leader, and maybe that's without a title when you were earlier in your career. Maybe that's with the title, but some leadership lesson that you would really like to share with the group that you think would be a helpful takeaway for anyone.
Zachary, I lost you for a minute. Wait, can you say your question again?
Sorry. Yeah. So the question being, what story would you want to share from your experience of either leading without a title or more recently in your career that has kind of a leadership lesson associated with it that you can share to the group?
Me specifically, or just anyway?
You and each of you. Yeah, I'm waiting for questions to come in on the chat from everyone. So we've got some time here to tell stories.
I can share a quick light bulb moment. I had early in my career, because I'm an introvert only child, like getting up on stage and rocking a party and doing all this. Like I developed that over time. That is not how I'm wired. I'm a decompress alone, introvert at heart. I just grew into a high functioning introvert extrovert in order to do what I do. But one thing I learned early on was that my repetition of taking action fit into a certain model, and the model is email focused, getting my thoughts in long emails and expecting people to thoroughly read my emails and respond in the same medium. And I realized that not everyone communicates in the medium. People that are the total opposite. You'll send them an email, they call you 5 minutes later. You're like, why are you calling? I don't want to talk to you. Like, I sent you an email to keep it out of my phone. What maniac is leaving me a voicemail right now, right? So I think it helps to realize that part of stretching yourself is to being open to the fact that your preferred way of doing the doing of your work may not be the best fit, and B, you need to be diverse in your approach. And once I realized I could get more results out of people by calling them, and I had some people that I could never get what I needed from them, I would just call them. And I to this day, it's like phone calls I'd much rather send a long detailed message, have people read every word and reply to my 18 very specific points. And part of a light bulb moment for me was just realizing, stretching myself wasn't necessarily like, I'm going to be VP of whatever. It was stretching myself to, I'm going to make, calls. It was like a very simple change in my medium. Other people, they don't want to work past 5. Other people, they don't want to do anything before 10. Other people, they don't want to be on a long meeting or a short meeting or whatever. Just realize you have a pattern. You've got to break it. And the hardest part of it is just realizing you have a pattern, and that's not gospel. It's just how you like to do what you do. But once you can get outside of it, part of risk taking is changing your work style and approach. And you'll find over time that you can adapt that and be agile with it to best match the situation. And that's part of good leadership, I think, is not having this like magic strategy, but just adapting your style to who you're talking with and who you're working with to make it fit the best scenario. So that's a quick lesson I thought would be helpful that took me a long time to learn.
Thank you.
I want to follow up on that, John. I think some of the best lessons are that we are relational people, to your point. And I have enjoyed really watching my mentors whenever we are in the room together. And they listen well, they ask good questions, they do a wonderful job of acknowledging others, but they also pivot away from the non-essentials. They're people that are, willing to work hard, they invest themselves in what they're doing. But overall, despite their individual styles, they are always looking to engage someone else in the work. So legacy and succession is this constant cycle for them. And I think whenever we can collaborate, then we do. And to underscore your point, again, the whole team looks better when we do that. So instead of thinking about how can I be a better leader, how can me and the rest of my team, how can we all be better leaders?
I can think of a story just a couple of months ago. This is so relevant or so recent, and it just stuck in my head. And it wasn't even me. It was one of our staff. When everything started to hit, I'll give a little context. At Rewire, our 2 main services that we provide, which is our source of revenue, is one-on-one coaching, but then live events. So keynotes, workshops, retreats. And I remember in the span of about 10 days, the remainder of our live workshops for the year. So we had a ton that were already services agreements done, most of the payments made, they evaporated. They were just gone. Not like, hey, we want to reschedule it. It was like a ticker tape of cancellations. And so we were just like, whoa, oh my gosh, what is happening here? And so we got the staff in a room, and there was a little bit of like, okay, gulp, what are we going to do? And I remember we had all these ideas, and unfortunately, we were in reactive mode. Like we like to operate from our toes, but we were operating a little bit from our heels at that moment in time. And in the back of my head, I have such a sales background that, okay, how are we going to sell? Like, what are we going to do? And there were different ideas that were going around. And our person, at least on the org chart, she's the lowest person on the org chart. We're all leaders and we do things to ensure that that's the case. But after we're having all these crazy ideas, she kind of spoke up in a quiet but bold way. And she said, we've always said that one of our core values is servant leadership and to serve people. So what would it look like if we strip away all the noise and just serve people? And we were all like, our jaws were open, like, duh. Like, how did we not think of that? And then we built a whole strategy around that. And irrespective of, is that gonna make money? Is that gonna sell? Just serve people. And so then we built out a whole webinar series and all kinds of ways just to serve people. And lo and behold, even though this wasn't why we did this, over the last 2 months, our business has actually grown and not dropped off. And it's like, what? How did that even happen? So she was a leader, even though she doesn't have the title of a leader officially in our org chart. Man, I'm so glad that she spoke up and she was bold. She took the risk, like you're talking about, John, and she spoke up, and that was phenomenal. And by the way, to your point also, John and Dr. Humphrey, I mean, she made us look really good. Like, she made us look really smart. It wasn't my idea. I was the leader in reactive. Like, I was not my best self right then, but she was, and thank God she was.
Wow, that's wonderful. Man, thanks for sharing these stories, guys. So in the last few minutes we've got, I do have several questions that have come in, and I'm hoping to get just sort of your quick answers. Maybe the person who feels strongest can answer that question succinctly. But from Kelsey Bain, what are your thoughts on leadership programs within a company? John or Jason, maybe do you want to answer that?
Whatever it is, sign up and do it, and then do more work than is required of you.
Yeah, I first of all, I agree with what John said. Coming from a corporate America background, I do know that there's just a lot of stuff that, like, you have to do, right? There's conference calls that you need to be on, now Zoom calls, and then you have to go do this training, and it feels like a have to. And I noticed that there can be this vibe of like eye rolls, like, oh, again. And to John's point, if you can go with an open mind and look for a nugget, there is something that's good there for you. You just have to seek it. And if your eyes are open and you want to receive that, you'll find what you're looking for. As opposed to, again, I'm generalizing here, I just see the masses go, oh, another training, you know, whatever. Just be just be different and look for the gold nugget there, because there is good stuff in there.
I would say, Zachary, too, that the benefit is twofold. You're going to get something out of it. And second, you indicate and create a culture around you of people interested in learning just to be better. And when I have a training I'm either required to do, or I'm doing because it's free, or I paid something, I pretend I paid $5 grand for every single thing I get trained on. If it's a book, I pretend I paid $1,000 for the book, because when you dethrone learning from a requirement and you absorb it as just something that, like, your quest is to be the best and to learn as much as you can in order to, like, find a way to change the world with the things you're good at, just remove all of the infrastructure and institutionalism outside of the training and focus on, just pretend you paid a ton of money to be there and to take it, and it'll change you. Even if it sucks, even if it's the worst program, you will get something out of it, and you want to create a culture around you of leading sideways to encourage others to participate as well. So that's my short answer. But if you have an opportunity to do a thing, take the thing, do the thing, crush the thing, and then do the next one. Just build in a lifelong curriculum, even if you pay for it, or if it's free, or if you're forced to do it from your employer, take advantage.
I'm sure there's a lot more we could add to that. I want to give Dr. Humphrey this next question, because I'm sure her answer is going to be amazing, from one of our attendees. What happens if my manager is not the leader I look up to? What should I do to gain the mentorship I crave and help me get to where I want to be in the future?
It's a great question. Thank you, Zachary. First, make sure that you're always showing respect for your manager. Your manager is in a position, and if that person seems to not be the mentor that you need, you can seek out mentorship in other places. But what you have to understand is the structure of the company where you work. And so it may, again, I'm going to go the relational route. It's important that you get to know that person because I've worked under a manager like that before, and she was insecure about being a manager. She was a new manager. And so again, to John's point, my job was to make her look good. And so I tried to partner with what her vision was as much as possible. And in turn, then I learned more and was able to step into a managerial role myself. So just really support that manager, but continue to look outside for mentorship, but show that you respect them and that you are a team player and you're committed to doing what's going to be best for your company.
Wonderful. Well, as we bring Mark Cruz back in, I want to give each of you the last kind of word here with our final question. What is the best piece of advice you've received from one of your mentors?
It's always, the best. What's the number one, gosh, I don't know. But the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that, Zachary, is be you. You are a unique person, whether you know it yet or not, and you have amazing gifts to give to your organization, to give to yourself, to give to the people that you're in relationship with, and to the world. And so please be yourself. Don't conform because you feel like you have to. There's all kinds of good little nuggets that we've given that, yes, they can help you, but be true to yourself. Always, even when it's hard to be yourself, be yourself.
So Jason, I usually talk with people about that as using your voice, like always use your voice. But I will say one of the best pieces of advice that I've received along the way, and this is something that Jason was involved in, is to write thank you notes often. And what that does is it honors the person that you're writing that note to. It reminds them that their work does not go unnoticed, but it also reminds you of what they taught you. And I think normally that happens at precisely the moment that you feel stuck and you need something to help you push forward. So I would say practice a lot of gratitude and let the people know that have been influential in your life, how they've touched it.
I would say, everything in life about big picture, pursuing the future, it's a constant tension or a constant polarity between chasing your passion and your big picture dreams and discipline, applied, non-exciting, repeat, right? It's like discipline and passion. There isn't a solution. It's just a polarity that exists. And you don't have to figure it out. You just have to be aware that it exists and do the next thing.
Awesome. Well, I would ask you all to give a huge round of applause, but that's going to sound like just me clapping. But thank you so much to our presenters. Panelists, you've been so amazing. And I'm just so grateful for you spending the time to share your wisdom with us. With that, I want to hand it back over to Mark. And thank you all for listening and for being here this morning.
Thanks, Zachary. Thank you, Dr. Marja Humphrey. Thank you, John Barnes. Thank you, Jason Abell. That was very insightful, and I really appreciate you guys taking the time today. Thank you to our audience for coming on board. I know your time is precious, but I appreciate your comments, questions. Your links of your profiles are on. Just a reminder, this is recorded, so you can hop onto YouTube for the Chamber's channel. This will be uploaded to that page. If you missed anything, wanted to go back and retake the notes, it will be posted on within 24 hours. I wanted to thank again our annual sponsors, some upcoming events. If we can pop it up to the screen right now, one last time, Ms. Taylor. Yeah, I love my magic. It just works. So the Screen to Table featuring Hudson Coastal is coming up on the 28th. The Chamber's annual meeting will be on June 16th. And for all the women leadership, their conference is coming up on July 21st. Again, thank you all to our annual sponsors. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to Zachary for moderating. I appreciate you all for your time. I hope you have a great day. Make it happen today, and thank you so much. Bye.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.